Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're tuning in. Welcome to this live broadcast session. Very glad to have you joining us today. I am Shohreh Ghorbani, the founder and technical director of Project Control Academy, the leading global provider of online training programs and resources in project controls. Today, we are going to talk about very exciting topic on the application of blockchain technology in project controls. Who's ready for exploring this exciting topic? If you are, go ahead in the chat and type in, I'm excited to be here. And of course, talking about the engagement, we want you to be engaged throughout our conversation. It's going to be casual conversations around the topic with an expert if that's the first time you're joining our live broadcast. So we are not going to have any PowerPoint presentation as such. We are going into the depth of this discussion through a casual conversation. And you're welcome to ask your questions as we have this conversation going on and get the guidance from the expert and our guest speakers. And also, don't forget to, if you are joining us live at the moment, don't forget to go in the chat now and type in your name and from which country you are tuning in. Also, if you don't mind resharing or reposting this live broadcast to your feed, so other connections of you can also joining and benefit from this great discussion, because you and anyone who is joining is going to get some future outlook on some new technologies in this session about blockchain and how we can adopt it in our projects. So it's going to be a great session. I don't want anyone to miss that. So we appreciate you if you share that with your connections so other ones can also benefit from it. So let's see who is here joining us. Oh, I see Dan Joyce, a member of our EPIC program, is already joining us. Thank you so much for joining the conversation, Dan. Very glad to have you. I see Joel, a member of our team, joining us. Very glad to have you, Joel, here. Samuel is here. Very good to see you, Samuel. Thanks for showing your excitement to be here. Thanks again. We have Fateme Ebrahimi joining us. Thanks for joining. We have Ramaniswa joining us here. Thank you so much. Oh, wow. We have Brian Lee from Steelray also joining us, a provider of a new technology for forensic DNA analysis. Thanks, Brian, for joining us here. I see Salman joining us. That's great. Also, if you tell us from where you're tuning in, that would be great so we know where you are. Oh, John is here also, a very active member of EPIC community joining us from Denmark. Very glad to see you all. So it's going to be a great session. Again, please have the conversation and engagement ongoing so you benefit the most from it. Don't forget to have a pen and paper to jot down some notes and also your questions, and have your questions coming up as we start the conversation. So let's get into the topic. As I said, in today's topic, we are going to explore one of the new technologies, blockchain in project controls. You might have heard so much about machine learning and AI and other new technologies and the application of those in our projects and in the new tools that are emerging. But how about blockchain? Perhaps you haven't heard that much about blockchain technology and application project control, did you? Again, please share your thoughts on the chat and let us know, where do you think we are with the adoption of blockchain technology in our projects? Is it going to be a new reality for our projects anytime soon? Have you even heard about blockchain? What are your thoughts on the topic? I appreciate if you also share that on the chat so we know where each one of you are. So, but yeah, we are going to dive into this topic, blockchain, and talking about what we are going to talk about today is going to be related to the benefits of blockchain in project controls, primarily the challenges of implementation, as well as some implementation requirements for blockchain in projects, because the expert who is invited here has actually implemented implemented blockchain in project controls and is going to share his experience and insight on the topic. I'm talking about Dr. Dimitris Antoniadis. So he's going to share his experience on the topic based on what he has already applied in some projects. And Dr. Dimitris is not only a subject matter expert when it comes to blockchain, and the blockchain is not the only topic he has delved into. He's also the author of a great book. I have his book here, so make sure to check it out. Demystifying Project Controls. So that's also the book he has written. That's how I got to know about him, actually. So through this book, believe it or not, and the connection started back then from just this great book where he is capturing all of his experience in project controls and then trying to demystify that for especially for project managers and others. So check that out. That's his perspective on project controls and opening that topic up. So in addition to being an author and also knowing about blockchain, he's also, perhaps, I'm not sure if you know or not, he's also the man behind setting up and developing the Bachelor of Science degree in project controls in the UK. Yes, you've heard it right. If you have heard about why there's no degree in project control, he's the man behind developing the curriculum, setting things up, getting the approval, and working with the team, of course, in the UK, and also teaching the subject to bachelor's students and Bachelor of Science students, and he's actively involved in that. So he's really contributing so much to our industry. He's also a consultant and PMO in PMO and project controls, bringing over 35 years of experience. So you are here for a great deal, and you're going to learn so much from Dr. Dimitris. So please help me give a warm welcome to Dr. Dimitris to start this conversation with us. Thank you so much, Dr. Dimitris, and very glad to have you joining us today.
Shohreh, thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you very much for all the good words you said about me. It's a pleasure of joining this session, as well as the EPIC initiative that Project Control Academy kicked off last year, which I found very interesting. Always trying to help and progress the profession, either through going through the basics through my book and saying let's implement them properly, or looking in new technologies like blockchain, like machine learning, and all the other new stuff that is coming through. But as we were discussing an hour ago in the EPIC session with all the experts and the members, we need to do the basics. So as I said, thank you very much for the introduction. Looking for, in the subject that I'm going to discuss today, blockchain, it's basically a group of us. I wasn't the only one. Considered back in 2017 how the blockchain technology can help project management and therefore project control. And when I'm talking about a group of us, I'm talking about individuals that spend their own time, and it was myself, Guy Ahmed Zakari from CostOS, SAP, IBM, Arup, the consultants and designers in UK. I'm forgetting a lot of people. Tata Steel, HS2, people from the PMO and the project control. So a lot of academics, Cisco, a large number of us got together and says, is there something that we can do in project management and delivery of projects through blockchain? And obviously, having the academic hat on, we're saying, and we were all saying, well, we got to prove it. So having sat for almost 2 years, every other month or every month in meetings discussing points about blockchain and what is required from the project side, from the IT side, from the project control side, we decided that we needed to do a proof of concept that is working, and therefore prove that the technology can be used. We did manage that. We did deliver a proof of concept project that was presented to parties like the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, and other institutions, as well as client organizations. And I believe now, because it's been now at least a year and a half, that one organization is picking that up through its PMO to implement blockchain. So um, a lot of interest, personal, because of the project control side, obviously, but also on in the project management. You mentioned that, yeah, I've set up the project. I mean, I contributed massively on the project, on the PSC in project controlling that we have now in UK. Um, so project control side, but also project management, delivery, and everything else that the new technologies can contribute. Um, so basically, if I can start now from the terminologies, and I know I'll try and keep the terminology simple. Um, Looking at the uh, the technology and the massive contributions it has, like automating the workflow, transparency, it, independencies, so interconnections, all that. I consider them as, you know, that these are things that we're looking for in project control. So if we look at them, if we look at the sort of what is blockchain technology, and I'm sure I think Salah there is one of the participants. Um, I'll try and make the definition simple. It's individual blocks that contain data that are time and date stamped, yeah, and placing them in a sequence. Then cryptography comes in and ensures that the blocks or data, right, cannot be copied or other data can be inserted. So it creates a continuity that is transparent, that keeps the full history of the chain of the data. And each block is another important thing for our commercial people and project control people of the projects. Each block is validated independently. So um, blocks have their own unique signature. So thinking more globally, we were saying, and I was thinking when we're talking with a colleague from Europe, therefore drawings can be have their own signature, therefore issued to parties for approval. And this is what we've done with the team. So we considered um, the design of a cladding panel for HS2, which is basically a mega project or a program of work that we have in UK that will link London to Birmingham and eventually and hopefully to Manchester and Leeds. So picking up the design, sending it for approval, sorry, the design from Arup as a designer, sending it for approval to HS2, and then following a more project control in inverted commas process, placing the order for the panel through various parties. And when placing the order, right, seeking approval and therefore placing order with for the delivery of the panel, and then following back upstream the process. So that was the proof of concept that we designed and we've implemented. And actually, on that particular topic, I did write a draft article which is in ResearchGate, and you can read a lot more in a lot more detail what was involved there, which is called blockchain technology and project control. So it's the nicety of the technology is that it's completely transparent and it gives full history of data to users, and especially when you have things like approving an invoice or agreeing to the progress that you received from a contractor or a party in the project. So
Dr. Dimitris, before we dive into the application of blockchain, I appreciate if you open up blockchain a bit more. I know you define it a little bit for us, like But for me, still, I don't understand how data is captured into block. So can you make it more understandable for everyone? What's the difference between blockchain and the way that we are capturing data right now? How would it help us with the security and transparency of the information? If you just, before we delve into much detail about blockchain and
Yeah.
going into the detail of the application, I appreciate if you open that up a little bit more for everyone. I'm sure not everyone is into cryptocurrency and know how blockchain technology works,
Well,
because I
it's
know that's kind of how, like Kamran, my husband, is already know the whole concept of blockchain. For me, it's completely new subject to me. So I appreciate if you open that up a little bit more, like how data is captured into block, why it makes it more secure, and how it helps us in project control. So I
yeah.
appreciate more clarifications.
So
Thank
the block of data is defined by the organization. So in our case, it was the placement of order, or if I take it a step back to the beginning, it was the design of the cladding panel. So that was a block of data. Now, that is then, as I mentioned earlier, there's cryptography that comes in and identifies a unique set of characters against that particular block of data. Yeah, and so this block of data then, and we'll cover that part later on, is set in a chain. Yeah, that chain then involves various parties that going in for reviewing or approval, and the chain is integrated because of that uniqueness of the coding. So basically, it's the technology is referred to also as a distributed ledger technology because each block validates independently all other blocks. So for the example I gave you on the placement of order, we have a chain of placements of orders, which is a simple document, yeah, that is in a chain of placing an order for panel XYZ. So that is a chain then, and each block gets approved by the individual parties. So these blocks of data are stored. And then as the approval happens, it kicks off, then the data is transmitted to the party that is going to pick it up and place an order. I'm trying to make it simple. it's I don't want to go into cryptocurrency, and I cannot say that I'm a technical expert on the technology of blockchain, because my interest is on how what we do in project control makes unique the block of data.
And talking about project controls, thanks for clarifying blockchain. Yeah, I know it's a new technology for many of us, so it really takes time to understand how the data is structured, how it's kind of through the chain, and like the philosophy behind it and how it works. But talking about project controls, I know you have been actively involved in kind of bringing blockchain into project controls. But can you share some of, and I think you kind of briefly addressed some of the benefits of leveraging blockchain in project control, especially with the amount of data we are dealing with in our projects on a daily basis. Tell us how blockchain can benefit, like this technology can benefit us in project control. So I appreciate if you share some of those benefits of blockchain in
Yeah.
project control specifically. Thank you.
In specifically in project control, because project control deals with data, a lot of data.
Right.
And I think, as we were discussing earlier on in the EPIC session, we have data chaos, as one of the participants mentioned. So what we need to do is we need to group properly this data using our standard structures. And this is why, again, I got involved with it, because using the standard structures that we have, the work breakdown structure, the cost breakdown structure, control account, which we used extensively in the proof of concept, using the data, which are obviously blocks, then this data becomes information and enables decision making. So in terms of, on the project control side, it standardizes the approach we have to structuring our data. And one thing that I need to mention right from the beginning, in terms of the project control side, we need to have a look at a holistic picture. It's a holistic, systemic view of the data in our project or program of work, because we are saying in project control that we're rolling out data from the parties involved on the project to programs of work to portfolios and then senior management. The other thing that we need to consider on the project control is that all the projects deliver an asset. I'm talking about construction. Even I can extend that to IT and IS systems. They deliver an asset. Therefore, we need to understand that within the asset organization, yes, there is an asset management hierarchy, and therefore the project coding will help the asset management organization to go on beyond the project lifecycle and the extended lifecycle and do maintenance. So structuring the data in blocks right from the beginning and saving that information, it enables the asset organization to follow on, with at the extended lifecycle. We need to understand, again, on the project control side, how to roll out properly the standard project management structures. We do that day in, day out in project control. But rolling that out, it means, I'll go back a step. Blockchain requires a collaborative environment. I'm going to talk about some issues there on the technical side. But rolling out the standard structures, it means all the parties involved work collaboratively and therefore understand what is the linking of the structures between the work they deliver and the EPC contractor or the client gets the benefit of that.
Dr. Dimitris, talking about again organization and structuring data into blocks. Can you shed more light on that? Because now all of us, what we know about structuring data, we all go back to WBS and work breakdown structure in our projects, and that's what is a known thing for us. But if we want to leverage blockchain, you said we have to structure data into blocks. So um, how it can be done, like in what aspect we are blocking? Do you mean grouping the data together? Do you mean coding the data together in a block? Like, can you just share more insights on
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
if we imagine that, again, I'll go back to the proof of concept that we did. The placement of order was for a particular panel. So the data are existing. Any organization has a piece of paper that says placement of order of XYZ to party A, B, C, right, to deliver that particular product, the panel. So in terms of project control, the client organization gives a control account code. That's a unique identifier to the person that is, to the organization that is going to provide the panel. So that is a set of data. So the placement of order is a set of data that is contained within that unique document. And that's what I mean by data. So that particular placement of order, right, gets a unique identifier within the blockchain that then is transmitted from the client organization to the contractor, and then the supplier. These steps in terms of project control, again, as we know it, need to get approved. So when the client issues a placement of order, it needs an authorization by the commercial manager that this is what we're ordering, and we're ordering for X amount of dollars or pounds. It goes to the contracting organization. The contracting organization person receives that piece of information and checks that this is what they really have been contracted to deliver. So it receives, approves, and then gets on with sending further placement of orders for the delivery of materials, etc. So these blocks of chain, are unique to that particular product. And coming back to what you said in terms of, in terms of the project control side, we are now, I hope, in a time where we are using building information modeling. Therefore, we've gone from two-dimensional drawings to three-dimensional drawings, I hope. And now we went to 4 dimensions, which includes time. And some organizations include time and cost as 4 dimensions, some are not. They're talking about 5D. So BIM, building information modeling, enables that chunking of data, and therefore giving unique identifiers to whatever the output is. And this is again where we're coming into the standard project control structures, the WBS, or the cost breakdown structure, the CBS, that identifies, the amount of labor, plant, material, other resources that need to be built. So BIM also enables us to split in chunks the project data that will then enable the implementation of blockchain technology, because drawings need to be approved. A drawing is a chunk of data, talking about foundations. The drawing of foundations needs to be approved by the client or the external designer. As a drawing is a chunk of data that needs to tick, that someone needs to tick the box that says, yep, this will be delivering what we're requiring. So creating chunks of data and speeding up, which again we proved, speeding up the authorization process is where the benefit of blockchain technology comes in. So instead of waiting for 2 or 3 weeks for authorization of the placement of order or for approval of the drawing, the automated flow of data, the transparency that we get from blockchain enables the speeding up and therefore reducing the amount of wasted effort.
So what I'm hearing, Dr. Dimitris, is mainly it help us with supply chain management. But when it comes to project controls, does it, again, perhaps I'm thinking, I don't know, thinking about the efforts that it take us to, again, have additional layers of structure and blocking the content and the structures and coding them. So does it worth going through all this effort? What the benefit would be for project controls? I understand now the aspect for the smart contracts and having that seamless integration and knowing where things are and where the placements are on the contracts perspective. But when it comes to controlling on projects and dealing with a lot of data in projects, would it also benefit us in project controls in addition to the contracts and smart contracts and the supply chain that you just addressed?
And this is exactly it. If we think about pure project control, your cost loaded and resource schedule, it's a piece of data that is sent to the client for approval. And usually in UK, we have 20 days for approval of your baseline schedule, let's call it like that. That is a piece of data that leaves from your construction organization, goes to the client for approval. The client could take 20 days, could take a bit less to approve that. So that chain of the data transfer, can be recorded because it's on the blockchain. Therefore, any observations, any comments that are received by the client, instead of getting lost in a document control system that is not so good, then is registered in the blockchain, sent back for commenting until it gets approved. So that transfer of data, it's much faster, it's clearer, and it's documented. It's not lost. As I said earlier, when I was explaining the blockchain, I tried to explain, the historical information is not lost. We have many cases now, and we heard one earlier on in the Epic where Salah was mentioning the case. A claim has been raised, then he's asked for the baseline schedule, and a year and a half later on says, and where are we now? And give me all the data in between, and this didn't exist. A blockchain will never allow for that to happen. So you issue your monthly report, that's a piece of data that is transferred. And you have obviously commenting, etc. That happens in progress. It doesn't add more effort. It makes the process much smoother, and obviously recording it historically. So I
Very
hope that
good
answers.
point. So it accelerates the speed of data transfer, the transparency, not
Absolutely.
losing
Uh,
the data that we have, which we
yeah.
know is a problem. So
If
very
I
good
yeah
point.
another project control process, it's uh, the payment of an invoice or the authorization of a payment of an invoice. Because again, here in UK, we have the quantity surveys that go out and check that the work has been done. Now, usually that takes, if one is lucky, it could take a week or two. Now, so usually the contractor submits the application for payment, gets reviewed, the quantity survey goes out, check what's happening, comes back with comments, and this all takes a certain amount of time to happen because emails arrive in your very busy schedule, the emails go down. So submitting an application for payment via the blockchain, it happens immediately. It goes to the quantity surveyor that needs to do the work, or the commercial manager that needs to check it. Someone goes out on site and confirms on the chain and says, I don't agree with this, that, and the other, logged in. And it goes back and says, we're not going to pay you 500,000 this month because XYZ, which is recorded. So therefore, it reduces also the conflict that we have.
Great. And I think it would help also with the change orders, right? Because change orders and getting approval
Yeah,
process also takes a long time. And by the time we get the approval, it's
absolutely.
so late, right? So I assume that would help with that process to any approval process, right?
It's all these processes that we have within project control. I talked about scheduling, the change control process, and the time it takes for a change to be approved. Risk management, you issue a risk register, and then in some cases, I've been through them, it was never revisited until since. So standard governance requires that on a monthly basis or whatever governance requires, a risk register is to be submitted. A blockchain demands that. Therefore, risk management comes there. We talked about cost control and cost management, performance monitoring. Um, Again, information on progress comes in, and we issue the earned value report. Comments come from the various parties. That report is issued to the senior management for um, review and decision making. So what we're doing with blockchain is we're grouping the data, as I said earlier on, becomes information that enables decision making. So it's all in the project control sphere of supporting decision making. But one of the basic requirements it is that it requires collaborative working.
Definitely. Good point. If you don't mind, I would like to address some of the questions of our audience
Yes.
regarding the use of blockchain. So let me see. Here is the question by Surikanta. And the question is, many industries has integrating tools that we all know, such as Equasys, In8, Prism, and different tools that are available now in the market for project controls that really integrates with ERPs and SAP and scheduling software such as P6, among others, seamlessly. In what way and how will blockchain will be introduced? I think you already mentioned that, but is there anything else to add to answer to this question,
I
Dr.
mean,
Dim?
and in particular to Sri Kanta's question, right, and that's how I got involved, because after 3.5 years of delivering a transformation program of works where we integrated Primavera with the estimating tool CostOS and contract and cost management tool Unify, um, it was nice because internally within the organization, oh, sorry, and we will link that with SAP as our ERP tool. It was nice because internally everything was, in inverted commas, working fine. Yeah, but we had 4 partners, and these partners needed to take part, and their organizations needed that information. So, would you, as a client organization, allow the other parties to come into your ERP system? It's not an easy decision to be made by your organization. Blockchain will enable then that communication between a company's ERP tool with another contractor's, suppliers, environment. Again, seamlessly, as Srikanta mentioned. Um, so it's an enabler that requires the basic structures to be there, but also, again, coming back to that collaborative environment. Um, and the other basic technical issue, which obviously we identified with the POC, is what is the technical base that will be used by the organization or organizations that will come together in the blockchain environment. And I'm talking about here the technology. Is it going to be a public system or a private system? And we did pick up an issue of the speed. So there are technology issues. So what I'm highlighting here is that blockchain technology can help, but it requires organizations to come together, including small to medium ones, yeah, then agree to technology based on affordability always, also, and then operate in a technical system that might be public or private, and the two have some, I don't want to call them security issues, but accessibility issues. And obviously, then it's looking at the speed. So there are technical requirements as well. But blockchain technology as a technology supports the integration of ERP systems from of a number of organizations that work collaboratively.
Okay, great.
There
Thank
is
you
there
for
is
addressing
another,
some of the challenges,
yeah.
Dr. Dimitris. You kept referring to one of the use cases that you have applied blockchain. Can you share more, like, because we want to know if really that's something that has
And
not yet been implemented, or you have actually applied that in a project. Can you provide some use application of blockchain based on your experience applying that in some projects?
that's why I said we applied the proof of concept, and the organization that we presented it to, HS2, and the PMO of the organization picked that up. And they are, as I said, about a year and a half ago, maybe two, their PMO now is implementing that. Unfortunately, I haven't kept up because of other personal things that happened. And they're looking at rolling out blockchain from their PMO, because that program of work is massive, and they want to see the benefits that the technology, the benefits that we proved through the proof of concept can be brought in, yeah, and then used in the program of work, which is High Speed 2 is called.
Oh, okay. So it has not been fully yet implemented in projects at early
Uh,
stages, right?
as far as I know, no, because I've lost contact with the guys.
Yeah, no worries. But based on what you said, it needs a lot of collaboration, some setup in our data, structuring our data. And if we do all of that within this organization we are working at, is it good enough? Or we need, like, let's say, the suppliers we are working with, subcontractors we're working with, other stakeholders of the project, do they need also to have this technology embraced so that we can take advantage of it? Or can
They,
we be on the
yeah.
competitive edge of this technology by starting it in our company, or it's too early, like, because the technology is not really fully adoptive yet? So can you give us some insight
It's
on that aspect,
yeah.
on the
That
preparation for this?
yeah. The technology needs further development, and I can see Yogesh's question: do you think the industry is ready to accept blockchain? Um, I'll come back to that, Yogesh, because that is a very interesting point that you're making. The technology needs to be developed. The other thing, as I said, is the collaboration. So we're looking at a client forming a cluster of companies around it that they will use the blockchain technology to be rolled out. And as I said, will that be public or will that be private? These are, I think, technical questions that will need to be answered by the technology experts, by the IS departments. Now, in terms of Yogis's question, if I think that the industry is ready to accept, one of the points I wanted to make is that including people within project control as well as project management, yeah, we need to manage behaviors and manage the change. Plenty of examples and build trust and collaboration. Plenty of examples where, as you mentioned, sorry, earlier on, right? A change coming in, a request for a change coming in and taking weeks and months. In my case, I know that invoices submitted and take months and months to be approved. And that was purely because of behaviors and some other issues. So there needs to be a behavioral change as well. So the technology can bring the benefits, but resolving technical issues, yes, but these technical issues are resolved very fast these days, as we have an example on machine learning and chat GPT. But the biggest change of all is the behavioral change. So ensuring that the person that is on the chain to approve that invoice or check and agree to that change order that has been, it needs to behave appropriately. So, Yogis, I'm afraid, are we ready to accept the change? It's a transformation, and it's a transformation not just on technology, but also on behaviors. And it will need effort from the cluster of the companies that will come together to deliver that thing.
Very good. Talking about Yogesh, I'm highlighting him here again. Yogesh is the CEO of Technobuild, and they're actually going to be part of our annual conference, Project Control Summit, this year.
Okay.
Make sure you check out Technobuild. They're very much into the edge of technology and applying and utilizing technology in their solutions. So, and I didn't know they're also into blockchain. So, as Yogesh said, they're also working on using blockchain to secure the deliverables of engineering. So,
Sorry?
yeah. So make sure you check them out for sure. So, Dr. Dimitris, did we miss you here, or kind of you got frozen for a second? I think yeah, it seems that, yeah, here you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we have you
Ah,
back. You got frozen
okay.
for a second. Yeah, no worries. So let me go through some more questions and then, but before that, so thank you for again shedding more light on this new technology. It seems that it's not being adopted yet, and it has not been, perhaps it's a very early stages of its adoption into project management and project control. Is that right, Dr. Dimitris, when it comes to
Uh,
blockchain?
yes, it is. I'd say it is because, first of all, as I said, it's been some time since I caught up with the guys and the company that is implementing it now. The other technical challenge, which obviously it will mean apart from implementing BIM that will enable, is the common data environment that will be needed. So there are a number of technical things that need to come together. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I do. Sorry, I
Sorry.
thought we are continuing the conversation. Let me go through another question here we have by Sajad. So he's saying, if I understand correctly, blockchain target needs to data scientists to work in it with code building and then merge it with controller tools such as P6 and stuff. So that's a good question, actually. Where in the process we will be engaged as project controls or project professionals? Do we need to have data scientists to be able to start implementing this and building those blocks and those coding that you mentioned earlier? Like, where would be our part in the whole process?
Yes, the data scientists, and we did have, I can't remember the organization's names that participated. The data scientists will be needed to pick up the brains from the project controllers, right, that know what are the standard structures, know how data is set up in a project environment, which standardizes what data are where. and they then will translate the blocks, yeah, that will need to be transferred, be that a schedule, be that a report, be that a change order, yeah. So yes, such a data scientists will be needed, but the process should be much clearer when we as project control uh, I don't know, put the right foundations in the way we hold data in projects, and not as project control, but also PMOs within an organization.
Okay, great, Dr. Dimitris. I saw a question earlier on, again, the use of blockchain. Let me find that question. So everyone, yeah, here. The question was, does blockchain help us with generating the schedule for us? I know, like we all know, like heard about machine learning, AI, and those knowledge-based systems that can help us being smart and even propose solutions and even propose even schedule. So I know with machine learning and AI, that's a possibility, but
That's
definitely not the blockchain. So blockchain has other benefits, but can you clarify that? So again,
yeah.
we are not automating everything here, right?
No, 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 no. Definitely, blockchain does not generate schedules. Is not what I mentioned earlier on, and um, I've seen a brilliant communication thing, message from Chirag Shah earlier about. I mentioned the Chat GPT and how he helps project control, and I can talk about that. But blockchain, it's about a block of data. So the schedule is a block of data that needs to be submitted or sent for approval or sent to the project team that could be working in, I don't know, um, Malaysia, right? And your base is in Texas. So sending projects that speeds up the process of chunking data. Machine learning and the chat GPT that Chirag Shah shared with us through LinkedIn, it's a different thing. Um, I have my views about the use of machine learning in terms of developing a schedule, or again, as his example, you ask chat GPT, can you give me the standard WBS for a substation? And he says, the proposed WBS. Yes, but you need to look at it. You need to check that is right. Whereas blockchain, it's you put on blocks the information, the data that needs to be transferred, and then it keeps that historical record in a chain. Anybody that tries to cut that chain, that is recorded in the system. So the system, obviously based because it's based on cryptocurrency, keeps that historical level of information. So who's interrupting what, which is what we need in projects. We need that transparency. We need that efficiency of transferring the information, and and all the other good things that are coming through the blockchain, the automated flow that doesn't exist. So yeah, I'm afraid no. I wouldn't trust. I was asked this question a year ago from an organization in the Middle East. We need to implement artificial intelligence on all our scheduling. It says no. um, we as human beings, as project controllers, even as PMO, when we said that we need to make sure that what we receive from chat GPT or any machine learning output is checked by the people that are going to deliver that. And blockchain is not on that side of the things. It's not on the side of making up, giving you an answer. It's different.
Very good distinction. Thanks for clarifying that. But what really amazes me also, last time we had a discussion about machine learning and AI and the application of it in project controls and the future readiness that we all need to get into data analytics to be ready for that, because it's almost coming, as you said, they're giving us suggestion. We have a lot of data to use, but every time in every conversation we have is again going back to the basics. Every time, like we go back to the data. Do we have structured data, even for machine learning, for AI? Do we have the data structured that we can learn from the data to be able to trust that prediction? So that's the one thing. Here with blockchain, you kept going back to the data. Do we have structured data? in terms of a block that we can code them and use them and secure them. So I think it all goes back to the data. But the question is, are we doing a good job in managing the
Absolutely.
long, I mean, big amount of data, the big data we have? I think the answer is no.
And
So are we ready for these new technologies yet?
yep,
That's
I've
another
seen, I've
question.
seen as asking, I've seen is asking a good question. It needs a complete procedure and structure. Is it possible for small to medium projects, or is it only usable for
That's
mega
a good
projects?
question.
I've
Yeah.
seen the challenge that we have, and I had with the organization I was working before, is that we have a large number of small projects. And when I say small projects, I don't mean in the 200 or $500,000. I'm talking about small projects below 10 million. We were working on about 400 projects per year on small projects below, I would say not 10 million, even below 5 million pounds. It is a challenge. It requires, as you're saying, a complete and proper setup by the organization PMO. And if there isn't a PMO, by the project control department that structures the data properly and therefore coordinating how the large number of small projects can be supported by blockchain. Yeah. So I think good question, but it requires that, as Shohreh has mentioned, is grouping the data that we have to create proper chunks and actually stating what are these chunks of data. I mentioned a report. We know that we all work on project control. There are a number of reports that are issued. Each report should have its own code because it goes to different levels or comes from site. So
Yes.
this is what we call data, not, and that's why I'm saying the importance of structuring the data. It means that when you put a control account code against your activities, then that group of data for that particular control account is grouped. It becomes one piece of information, one block that then gets transferred to the parties that need to do whatever they need to do.
Okay, great answer, Dr. Dimitris. We have another great question that I actually wanted to ask you by Hamid. And the question is, okay, now we talk about this great technology. I know it's at our early adoption, it's at early adoption, but how can we get ready for that? Like, is it necessary for all people involved in the project to be trained about blockchain, such as client, everyone involved, as a project professional or as an organization in general? How we can get like be at the competitive edge and be ready so when this technology kind of spread more into the industries and projects, so we can be the first to adopt that. Like, how can we can be ready for this technology? Is there anything we need to learn? Is there anything we need to do? We appreciate any insight on that, again
Yeah.
following Hamid's
To
question.
Yeah, I mean, to answer Hamid's question, not all the people need to be trained on blockchain. All people need to be trained on standardization of what they need to do on their projects. Um, but blockchain as a technology means that you receive much faster. And again, as we did on the proof of concept, you receive much faster the information for which you need to make a decision, and you know that it hasn't been tampered with. So it will be, for example, the head of contracts that will need to sign the contract or authorize a payment that needs to be not trained on blockchain, but trained on the process that will define what can you do to authorize or reject, um, say, an application for payment. Yeah, so it's not training on blockchain. The blockchain, the detail on blockchain, it will be the IT's department or IS departments. But in terms of project control, is making sure that the data is structured properly, so nothing falls off the rails, as we say. Yeah. So these
So,
are yeah.
who would be the initiator of this technology? Is it us in project controls who are dealing with the project data to structure the data and to group them into blocks properly? Or is it another department, let's say contract department or something, who would be initiating those codes and blocks? Who would be the starting point in the whole process?
I mean, from our project control side, we can be ready if we have the standard structures there. So if anybody comes and says, I need all, as I mentioned earlier, all the information about a control account XYZ, or the work package, because we standardize the approach to the WBS, that refers to steel work, say, for example, or the construction. Because we have the standard structures, we are ready. What I'm saying is we are ready for the technology. So when the IT department comes and says, the board has decided to implement technology and I need you to structure all the information, we can say, well, we have that information. What do you want? So we are ready. We are a step ahead of when that person comes and says, right, and I need to check all your, how do we receive and approve change orders? Yep, yes, because our cost breakdown structure and all activities are scheduled. So anything that is there can be picked up by that code. So that's why. So we in project control structure the data to enable the technology then to put it in blocks and send it for whatever it is, authorization, um, uh, design approvals. Yeah.
Very good
Uh,
point. Yeah.
yeah.
So basically, we can be starting with this, right? So it can start with project control
Yeah.
people in an organization by structuring the data properly and have it ready. But perhaps, again, quite a lot of questions in my mind how we can do that, how we can, again, I don't want to go through the how. I know it's not easy to answer that, but it's a good thing to know that it can start with each one of us and to know at least how to structure the data properly, how we can make them into blocks. But at least that's a good information for us to know that we can get started in this and have a competitive edge. Let me go through another question we have here by
Again, Yogesh, good point.
yeah, and Surikanta, what does it give? Seamless, fast, secure data transmission. So again, we are going back to the basics of, okay, what's the whole thing about this blockchain? You talk about the speed of the data. How about the integration? Does it also create seamless integration? So yeah, that's kind of the question brought by Surikanta about this. What's the
It,
end result of blockchain finally? I know we talked about it, but in one sentence, how would it help us?
it speeds up the transmission. It is secure. It cannot be tampered with. Yes. It provides the operational efficiencies that we've been talking about. Yeah. This is what we've been talking about all this time. Um, so that you reduce the administrative effort, reducing reconciliation of transactions and things like that. It's seamless because it's fast. Yeah, Srikanta, it's fast. The transfer is fast. I mean, and again, in the paper that you can see, you can access. I think, Shohreh, I've given you the link because it's open. Yeah, on ResearchGate. Um, we're given an indication to the organization the amount of time that can be saved by this authorization, yeah, by speeding up the transfer of data and the authorization. So it's this drive for operational efficiency that we need to capture from and bring in from the blockchain technology.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, Dr. Dimitris, also having the record of our data in a very secure environment, something that
Yeah,
we can trust. That's also, I think, another great benefits of blockchain. So hopefully this technology comes into play soon. And thanks to Joel. Joel already put the link to the
absolutely.
article that Dr. Dimitris was referring to. Thank you, Joel. So you can go check that out for more details. Again, Yogesh has challenging questions. Actually, that was my question. I hesitated to ask that question because we don't have much time to go through the details, but actually that popped up in my mind too. So we talk about structure of the data in terms of blocks. So, and here is it the extension of our WBS? Kind of, does it go further to define the packages in terms of block for our schedule progressing? Just very quickly how it can be done. I know it's too much to go through the how, but is it a further step to our WBS? Is it rolling our WBS into
It's
different packs?
drawing. No,
Yeah.
it's drawing. Yogesh is drawing from the WBS that's is being standardized and defined. Um, and we all know, setting up a good WBS at the early stages of the project always enables a better delivery. Um, what was it? And that goes further
But
to the
then, Dr. Dimitris, how does it blocking or grouping would be different from work packaging or from, let's say, different engineering EWPs, CWPs, all of this packaging that we do in our projects, again, driving from WBS,
yeah,
how would it differ from those? Because we still group our data, we still package them together, we have work packages
yeah.
at different stages of the project. Is it something the same? We just add and assign code, Unicode to that, or
It's
is it a
that
different level of grouping?
it's how then the technology picks up to identify to allocate that unique identifier. Yeah, they I don't want to the digitization of that block of data. This is what the technology offers. So if we do have what, as Yoga said, is if we or you mentioned, right, the EPC as a work package under WBS, that we identified within the WBS, then we inform the people that work on blockchain technology that that needs a unique identifier. So cryptography ensures that 124 character unique identifier, right, is transferred to, and we tell which parties. So that's how that, but it doesn't add to the WBSO. We need to tell it what are the data that need to be grouped.
Great. So
Good question, Yogesh. Yeah.
I don't see that much additional changes. So perhaps it's the assignment of a code to what we're already doing in grouping the data. So that's what I see, but I don't know. But that's great discussion. So I thought it's more
Oh,
uh, harder to adopt, but it doesn't seem so. As long as we can just collaborate with the team who will be involved in the adoption of the blockchain technology and coming up with those codes and unique identifier, I think we should be fine, right? Because we already
on
have
the
the data
yeah.
structured, right?
We should be doing it. We should be doing the basics of project control. It's that, as I mentioned, is the technology that is the challenge. Is the
Right.
technology that needs to come up with it and then faster. Again, is it going to be a private or a public environment? These are the things that the technology needs to address. But as far as project control is concerned, as I said, if we do the basics and we lay the foundations for proper project control, we are able to um, to implement, let's call it, blockchain technology and enable the organization to deliver much more efficiently, coordinate better, work in a collaborative environment, and then I think, as I mentioned earlier, manage that behavioral change rather than the data.
Very good. My last question, we already talked a lot about blockchain, the application of it, the challenges, where we are with this
Right.
technology, which is at the early stages, and how we can start getting started on that. But the last question is perhaps I would like to know your prediction, Dr. Dimitris, because again, our community is really, again, a big shout out to everyone who joined here who wants to really have a competitive edge and know what's coming up so they are ready. So a big shout out to everyone who joined us in this live conversation, asking some great questions. Thanks, everyone. So perhaps, yeah, we are at the early stages of adopting blockchain in projects and in project management. But when do you think, and as you said, needs collaboration, needs everyone to have an understanding so we can start having that. But when do you think that's going to happen? Is it 1 year from now? Is it 10 years from now? Any predictions? So when this technology come into our projects and become a reality?
I mean, I would have, now that you asked this question, I would have liked to get in touch with the guys that are doing it already because I know the head of the PMO and he was part of, um, and I wish back. Um, my worries, these are two things that I mentioned. First of all, it's the cluster of organizations that got to come together to work in the blockchain. So therefore, they need to be led either government, right, or client, right. So client picks up the cluster of the contractors that are going to work with and suppliers and creates a network, yeah, that they can sell the blockchain, and that is a big change for our times for organizations. And the other bit is then, and as I said earlier again, I believe technology will make the speed much faster. I don't think the speed side will be the issue. The issue will be getting client organizations to accept the blockchain technology approach and therefore create the clusters around them with, I think there was a question about small and medium size organizations. Bring them together because it is also a case of affordability. Can it be afforded? So I would like to think that blockchain technology will be implemented much sooner than trusting what machine learning tells us about our projects. Because, as I said, it's basically implementing what we're doing and therefore resolving these two issues. Whereas machine learning, I think it has much bigger challenges to address and even more bigger behavioral issues to address.
Very good. Thank you so much to you, Dr. Dimitris, for sharing your insights on the topic. And really sorry if we challenge you a lot because that's also something new to all of us. And thanks to Yogesh, who were shedding some lights and asking
Yes,
some challenging questions. It seems that they are
and
already
Srikanta.
applying
Yes,
some
a very good question.
blockchain in that's great in their solution. That's amazing. So we would love to hear from you, Yogesh, on the advancement that you have made. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, definitely, I think the message we are getting here is still new. We are adopting, but the good thing is we are now having the heads up, so we know what to expect when it comes. Any final thought before we adjourn the session, Dr.
I mean,
Dimitri?
um, just be prepared and open-minded about the technologies that are there, and they are there now. Virtual reality, augmented reality, all these things are out there now. Using drones to monitor progress, yeah. 4D and 5D implementation, be open-minded, but also always, right, know that unless you lay the foundations right, you're not going to achieve the required outputs. And therefore, if you are on the receiving end, maybe you will receive some bad news. So be prepared, do always your job properly, right? And set that up and be prepared to say, yeah, we're doing that already. What do you want from us?
That's a good ending point. We are ready for this. What do you want from us? So let's go and
Exactly.
do it.
Project control is always ready.
We are always ready. Who said we are not?
Yep.
That's great. Thanks again, Dr. Dimitris, for really shedding more light on that. Again, blockchain. I was also curious, students, to learn from you on the blockchain. It's always, we also had a topic on really what blockchain is, like last year at our annual conference, Project Control Summit. It was very eye opening. So, again, I
Good.
encourage everyone to go and explore that. Again, to me, I thought it's more complex, but now after hearing you, Dr. Dimitris, it doesn't seem that much, and it can help us a lot. So hopefully we can take advantage of this new technology in the coming years. You didn't give us prediction when it's coming, but hopefully it comes at sometime soon. But thanks to you again, Dr. Dimitris. A big shout out, a big thanks to everyone who joined us in this live session, has been following the conversation for the last hour and 10 minutes we've been together. So we appreciate you. Every 2 weeks, we go live on LinkedIn and have a conversation with an expert. We either talk about new technologies like the last two sessions we had, or we talk about challenges in our industry or
Yep.
solutions. So just be ready for the next one. The next one would be on February 23rd. So mark your calendar, 11 a.m. on Thursdays. So we go live every 2 weeks. So we look forward to seeing you on the next session. And again, thanks everyone for joining us. And special thanks to Dr. Dimitris. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you very
before
much for
that, don't
inviting me,
forget
Shohreh.
to get a copy of his book. It's a very good read. I went through the whole thing and you can finish it fast. So go through this, demystifying project controls. So, anyways, thank you so much, everyone. We appreciate you for joining us. See you next week. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Shohreh. Thank you for the invitation.